Hello and welcome to Raising Anchor, your podcast and source for all things Rhode Island FC. I'm your host, Matt Entrikin, and this is your Monday mailbag for April 21st, 2025. Joining me as always is the now maybe not so stone-faced and somber Jason after some news that we learned over this weekend. A lot of different trajectories from where we thought this mailbag was going to go. But Jason Carey, how are you doing, my friend? And where do you stand on it? We've gone from the highest of highs, the lowest of lows, and now we don't know where to go.
Yeah, it's difficult there when you don't get a great angle of what happened.
Oh, we're just going right into it, huh?
And you have to go based. I mean, that's what you mentioned, the ups and downs. You know, maybe we were thinking it was one thing until we saw some photographic evidence that it wasn't. I mean, but also, you know, in this day and age, I don't know, can you trust anything you see on the internet?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I mean, we're going to get into it. There's a lot of questions. Obviously now, probably a different direction than where we're going to go. I will selfishly say that we totally, and maybe it was by an accident, I don't know, but we totally did record a podcast last night that we never will see the light. It's going into the vault, Jason. It's going into the vault forever.
Vault 401.
Vault 4. There's one day when we are old and dead, I'll have like some sort of like safety code password thing that like releases it if we don't put the code in once a year or something like that. And then anyone that's still alive, they can just listen to all the things, and then they can make their own opinions of who we really were this entire time. But this is going to go in there with there's interviews from players and front office members that they'll never see the light of day, and unfortunately
put them in some weird time capsule that's only can open like a certain amount of years in the future.
Exactly. And our preconceived opinions of one Joshua Encarnacion, it's going to get locked away. So at least we don't have to like issue a formal apology. And I wrote it on the Twitter when we saw the picture from a Detroit fan who sent it to us, like, are you sure about that? They did that that, if you know what I mean, like, you sure about that? And I'm glad, because it's a good lesson. It's an important time where we realize that we're not going to get it wrong. I think ironically, at the time when we were talking about it last night, we mentioned a lot about how it has to be clear and obvious. And our whole argument against Joshua at the time was, well, this isn't clear and obvious. And I think we forgot the point where we may not always have all of the information. So it may not be clear and obvious to us as the fans, us at the game. And luckily there is a piece of evidence that validates Encarnacion in this case. But nevertheless, we learn and we move on. And now we realize that we had to play over 90 minutes of a match that
maybe didn't mean a lot.
Didn't mean a lot, because it's hard for Coach Cano to kind of pick up and go from there. But we're going to have some fun then tonight. We'll talk about the things we do know. We'll answer the questions that we can. We are live, so if you are jumping on, I know this is not our normal time to go live. We usually pre-record these and get it out for commutes and whatnot.
We started at 8:36 for the 36ers.
Of course, it was all part of the plan. It wasn't that we were, scrambling to do a live show off format or off day. But yeah, so this is going to be fun. Some of these questions we get a second shot at now, and we get to kind of look at it from a different perspective.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Right, because it didn't happen.
Allegedly.
But this should be very, very interesting. So before we jump into it, though, I said it yesterday, so I'm going to say it again. The swivel chair, that we upgraded the chairs in the studio. So for the longest time, we've never like put money into things. Like, there's the posters, like the room soundproof. We've got studio lighting in here and whatnot. Although you'd never know this, because Jason on the screen, if you watch along, Jason looks like he's in a dark cavern. All of the floodlights are on me. None of them are pointed at Jason, yet all of the ambient reflection from the background and the fact that he's closer to a wall, it looks like he's in a cave. I'll take a bigger picture at one point and just macro it out so people can see. All of the lights are on me. You're just sitting over there in darkness, and yet you look so bright. But you got us big boy chairs. You got us executive podcaster chairs. But now mine swivels, and I keep rotating. I'm an antsy sitter,
Swiveling,
I guess.
Boys.
I'm swiveling. So this is a problem for a future time. Some people in the chat, Tim McDuff already asks a new question, so we'll add that in there. And then he also wrote in, did we count Frank's fingers to make sure it wasn't AI generated? In this day and age, if ChatGPT can do what Studio Ghibli, takes, like anything is possible in this world. I think I saw one of Homelander at a college rave party with Donald Trump and Joe Biden, and like they looked good. Like they didn't look real, but they looked good. AI is starting to. I mean, we've seen the deep fakes out there in the world today. Now, AI is a terrifying place. Skynet is upon us, Jason. The world will be over long before we ever have to release the secret raising anchor cuts.
Where are the Connors at? We need them. We need their help.
All right, so let's get into this. I mean, again, some of these are going to be a little difficult, but let's start with the big one here.
Yeah. So Brian here wants to know honest thoughts on the ref.
I mean, at the time, I was very upset. It goes like this: when you see a call like that get made in the box, and it's two defenders tussling, and you go straight to the back pocket, it has to be clear and obvious. Again, that was the key words kind of in my mind the entire time, both at the game and then kind of going through it again. It happens so fast, and you see defenders jockeying for position. You see the tallest players trying to get that additional piece of leverage. And in the earliest stills that we got, in fact, I'll put the one on the screen that we kind of used as the "is this clear and obvious." This doesn't to me look like at the time like this is clear and obvious, right? This looks like something where you see that both players have contact, and that's rightfully so. They're going to both be trying, like, I forget the defender's name, but he's going to try to collapse on Nodarse, and Nodarse's going to try to create space. So what I see here is as a DCF defender trying to wrap around Nodarse pushing off. And in this very blurred image, which is the closest we could find from the broadcast cut, we see Nodarse's hands coming in at like the badge level, like chest high. And if there was face contact, initially we had assumed, okay, well, like his hands went up into the player separating, because like
Tall people problems.
Yeah, you can't control your leverage at that point. You're just trying to get away. And so, if at most when players come together like that, even if it's a slip and there's like light contact to face, I think it matters a lot, also the spirit of it. Is it violent conduct, or is it, two bodies coming together? And I just didn't see it. It was so early on in the game to make that decision. And to Encarnacion's, decision, it was fast, right? This was not something he mulled about, where he walked off to the side, wanted to see if one of his line refs could
confer with anyone, then go to an imaginary VAR screen that they don't have. He just already kind of like he saw what he, what he saw and just went with the decision there.
Yeah. And I mean, I'm waiting, I'm waiting for the day where an MLS veteran that steps down accidentally just does like the VAR single, and then there's no VAR in USL. But having said that, yeah, so he goes straight to it. It's tough in the moment. And I think at game time, what was so difficult about that was then you've basically thrown this game away, because at most Kano's forced now to play a completely different style of attack than what he wanted to play. It's basically a bunker and hold and try to catch a team on the counter, which we saw Rhode Island try to do at times, but there weren't enough bodies, I think, left at that point. But it unravels the entire game. We wanted to blame it all on Encarnacion, and now we see that it was Frank. And Tom Quinlan had called out during the play-by-play that you got to be better composed. And unfortunately, a lot of the negative points to this now have to unfortunately shift to Nodarse. If you're going to be a defender in this league, like, you have to know better. I think that there are instances where Detroit knows from a gamesmanship perspective how to really sell being the heel of this league, both in the stands and on the pitch. And we were punished for that through some lack of patience. And it's very early on to be doing something like that. Like, I don't think anything yet had really triggered in this team to be that heated to go up to the face. And so, I'm sure at the end of the day, I bet you, Frank, it wasn't intentional either. I bet you he just did go to push, and then, but unfortunately, he just decided to grab right at the neck and, sing sweet nothings to the Detroit player. But you can't do that. And it is very much now no longer a case of not being clear and obvious. It's very clear. I mean, like, look, if you look at this picture, it's blurry. This is what we defined as doesn't look like a red to us. And then, here, boom, that's a red. What do you think Frank Nodarse is thinking in the moment as he's touching that player? What do you think he is projecting into that player? Because we thought when he walked off, we thought he looked very upset, like he was being punished for it. Now I'm wondering if he's like, those were tears of like, I really messed up. Like, I really screwed this up for the team and for Coach Kano and for the fans.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe he told him Cuban food sucks or something. I don't know. I mean, imagine, they're kind of all when they're pushing and tussling in there, and they probably, some of them, especially as you talk about Detroit being the heel, there's probably some words thrown around there too, trying to kind of get under Rhode Island's skin. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if he said something and maybe it got to him. And I think that, at the end of the day, you have to have a cooler head and just kind of like let it go. I mean, if it's something really offensive, maybe you gotta like bring that up to the ref, like bring their attention of like what he's saying. Um, but yeah, it's unfortunate. Like you said, we from that initial picture, we saw it and we're like, that's not clear and obvious. There's no other, they didn't provide any other camera angle to it. It happened so fast. And we're like, we had some previous encounters with this ref too, and we didn't buy what he was selling us. And so then, late yesterday we got this picture and we're like, oh, okay, maybe that was kind of deserved.
And I think that's critical too, because we don't exactly have a stellar reputation with this ref, right? Charleston was the first game that he refed with us. It was the first red card in club history that saw Connor technically out on a double yellow for some less than great performances. At the time, we had seen, going back to that game, I think it was like 44 fouls, pretty even across the board, 22 on each side. We had a combined 6 yellow cards, and Charleston got away with 1. And I remember it very early, and it was very succinctly that was the first game where Kana started to question, and the press had asked him as well, are you playing too physical for this league? Is this league the kind of team that just falls down when contact is made? And Kana was the first to say, like, I don't know if there's a reputation going around amongst the league from like team to team, or the refs are understanding how we play and how we perform. But like, yeah, I'm not going to tell my guys to dive just because contact has been made. Like, that's not the team I'm building. That's not the vision I have for this group. And he was frustrated. He that was the first time he had kind of hinted that the refs weren't being good at their job. And Encarnacion, honestly, if I don't have the stats up tonight because I didn't bother to go back. Actually, maybe I do still have them up. Hold on, let me look.
It was something like 100, somewhere between
Yeah, so
150
yeah,
to
so I actually
180.
still have the link up. So Encarnacion is now second in the league for total fouls called. He does have more games than any other ref. Well, not more than, but he is at the highest level of total games that he has so far refed this season at 4 games. And he's already indexing a rate of fouls per card at 7.6 on 129. So he's the second highest foul caller in the league. And then on the averages, again, this is early. This is just like trying to pull stats out of a team's performance, but he's over indexing by about 2.5 points per card on average than the rest of his, referee pool inside pro. So he's over fouling, and he is under carding then because he's not delivering the cards as equally. And as a result, like, RIFC getting punished here. But that's, I think, for the rest of the game. If we talk about the macro of it, I think that this ref, and he also refed the El Clamico match at home and at Burns Stadium, I think it's hard to understand when he'll allow play to just continue. One of the very first moments in this game, it was an overload on the side. Now, Darce was coming up, and there was a foul against Aldair Sanchez, and it should have been an advantage. We were on the attack. Nadarce collected the ball and went up. It may have been Fuson that went down. So someone went down, but Fuson, but Nadarce collected the ball, and for all intent, we had an attack, and instead he called it back, blew the whistle, and said, "Nope, we're going to reset this." So I'm not saying that Joshua Encarnacion is main character energy, but he definitely inserts himself into the game that makes it difficult to figure out what a foul is, what a card is, and how far you can press that or really push that effort. I was surprised later when JJ Williams got his yellow card. Some of the fans had come in and said, "Hey, this is for dissent. This is for time wasting, the delay of game." And it was like, no, we went back and pulled the data. This was for a tactical foul and reckless challenge. And then we went and watched the tape on it. And the guy, I think the wind at Keyworth is what actually blew him over. But again, Detroit City has some very good gamesmanship, and they know how to sell a foul. When you set up a team, Jason, you set up against the players, and you also understand what kind of ref are you dealing with. They pull the same stats that we're looking at. They pull the same tape on like what's going on. And while Encarnacion may have been right on this red card, I don't think that he overall has given any kind of positive, memorable performance when it comes to the refereeing he's done in the games that he's managed so far for Rhode Island FC in its tenure.
Yeah, now that we've seen evidence that the red card is a red card, we'll give him that back to him. I think overall, like you said, I'm still maybe not. I would not be happy to see him as a ref there. I'm like you said, I'm not 100% sure I really understand what his MO is. It feels like he wants to constantly stop play, but not always give cards out. Like I don't know what that is doing for anyone. Like he's trying to ref a tight game, but like USL is a physical league. So I don't know. Not a fan. But yeah, let's what's the next one we got here?
Justin writes in, how much did City pay for that red card? I mean,
that's I think that came in before.
Again, yeah, a lot of fan education has to happen at this point.
Like I said, it's hard to say what went on. I don't know if when it comes to things like this, is if Nodar say, well, maybe at some point, share his feelings on exactly what happens.
Well, if he does, it's going to be in Spanish.
Yeah, probably also doesn't want to talk about it right now. Maybe let that kind of blow over before that gets brought up. But maybe there was some words exchanged there. Maybe he was maybe the Detroit defender was just doing a really good job at like harassing him, kind of got under his skin, and he just unfortunately lost his cool there.
I mean, if there's a media day this week, I'll go and I'll ask Kano and see what's going on. But yeah, as of right now, this question still has some relevance. I think we can do a little bit of teaching for new fans that are coming into the team or the league this year. So let's get the next question.
Yeah, and so Katie wants to know here, can Kano challenge the red card?
So yes, there is a system in place where coaches can challenge red cards specifically. They cannot challenge yellow cards in USL regular season. I know last week we had asked the question about the Open Cup. Could Kano challenge the double yellow just because of the impact? You're in elimination tournament now. We don't know about that, but we did say that if Kano could explore any avenue, he would. In terms of the red card, it's a lot more simple. Yes, you can challenge to the disciplinary committee for red card grievances. There's an entire process that requires paperwork being submitted within a very fine timeline, a very, very small window to get all of those things done. And a great example of that is actually last year when Noah Fuson got his red card against Luis Salniak in San Antonio.
Yeah.
And we were actually the ones that we went back and watched, and like we did the zoom in slow motion. Like there was no contact. It was just completely erroneous. It was completely made up. And so Kano had said that he intended to challenge for it, and then the disciplinary committee came back and said that the red card appeal had been denied. And we were all shocked because we were like, there's no way this doesn't get overturned. Come to find out, it was due to an admin error. The club blamed the league and pro and the club, and the league blamed Kano and the club. We've never gotten the right story on that, whether it was one thing or another. Kano swear. I mean, I believe in Kano. And, if Kano says he did it, I believe in him. If something did come up where, you didn't put the $25, review fee on the credit card bill at the same, whatever administrative issue came to pass.
It's like one checkbox they forgot to.
Right. This is a symptom of a new club, new in operation at that level. That's not great to see. But like at the same time, I refuse to believe that we're at this petty amongst the league, the team, and the pro referee organization that they wouldn't honor the spirit of the review. So we don't know on that case, but yes, Kano can successfully challenge, or he can challenge. There are two instances that you can do it in. If you fail in your appeals, you can't do it infinitely. I mean, you also don't want to see your team get multiple red cards in the year that you need to challenge. But as long as you're successful in your appeal purpose, it's kind of an infinite loop. But if you have two unsuccessful ones, as of right now, if the pro standards change, then that's fine. But as of right now, you can do that twice. So Kano, we thought was going to be off to the races and go and challenge this one. I expected to see Monday, this morning that like he was already filing the paperwork. Maybe he just got back to training and watched some tape on what he could do for the rest of it. So,
do you by chance know if there's a limit on challenges in that regard, like how many times you can challenge red card?
I just said it. 2. You get 2
2.
unsuccessful. You don't listen to this while we talk, do you? You just zone out on the next
No.
question, huh? Wow. It's bad enough when listeners say I'm boring, but you sitting right here across from me, that's terrible. That's really bad, Jason. Yeah, you get 2. For those that were also zoned out, or maybe I didn't say it well enough, you can infinitely challenge, but you can only get up to 2 unsuccessful. So once you've failed twice,
Okay.
you cannot appeal for more. So you've got it. It's a way to keep the system, right. One, you have to pay you have to pay everyone to do it too. On top of that, I think it's at least like $2,000 or something like that.
Okay. No, that makes sense because part of me is wondering, is like, well, if you just put it in there anyway and see what happens,
right?
Depending on who reviews it, and
it
they're
does
just like,
not
oh,
work
okay,
that
yeah.
way. Yeah, it does not work that way at all. So let's get back into the next one here, and this one's from Ben.
Ben says, "Ref was atrocious. Everything going Detroit's way."
What were your thoughts on that? Because I will say the one that bugged me the most outside of the red card that we thought was wrong, I did not like the tackle against Amos Shapiro-Thompson.
That was a bad tackle.
That was a very bad tackle. He's already been injury prone. It was on the knee that he struggles with, and it was a sideways, scissor kick out, just coming at speed on that knee. I was like, he's gonna crumple. This is it for him. This is his career fading fast. And of course, it's at Detroit Stadium. He got up, he looked stronger for it, but that was the hardest yellow I have ever seen given by a referee.
Yeah, very much in that, quote unquote orange territory where it's, basically a red. One thing I will say too, is that, and especially maybe for some of those who are slightly newer to this team, there is kind of, and maybe even newer to soccer, there is an unfortunate reality where you mentioned earlier about knowing the ref, right? And if you know that he's going to call the game a certain way, unfortunately, some people will play the game to that, and they will take any contact they can get, and they will go down. And it's not great, but some teams do that. The reality is, at least under the current leadership of Kano, that's not going to happen under Kano. He will never, and that's not to say none of our players will ever go down soft, but he never pushes that. And based upon the players and the profiles of types of people that this club has signed, you see they'd rather kind of fight through a challenge and continue to go on. It's just not those type of people, for better or for worse, right? I think at the end of the day, this team is going to fight and try to play their game despite what the ref and the other team are going to do.
What's the over under Coach Kano as a game suspension because of yellow card accumulation this year? Because I think he's at 2 regular season, and I think he also did he get one at the Hearts of Pine? I thought he did. But I was on an airplane, and I can't watch the replay on that. So
I can't remember, and they don't keep Open Cup doesn't keep
right.
good.
So I know he's at 2 in the regular season now. What's the over under? He gets a yellow card discipline, or as a coach, do you just pay a much larger fine so you can continue to coach the games?
That's a good question. I don't know if for USL or not that's different. Maybe they have a similar thing where last year Clay kept getting close to it, and then he would be fine for 5 games or drop off, then get another one. And I don't know. I guess it also depends on how the season goes, right? If it's going to continue on the way that it's been going on right now, some ups and downs. Yeah, no, he definitely gets suspended a match. But if we start to see a good run of form, I think he'll realize just okay, it's fine. I may be upset, but we won. Just let it go.
Do you remember when we did the 90, 50, 10 predictions?
Yeah.
I want to add a 25 in there, and there's a 25% chance that Coach Kano gets a ejection from a match this year. I don't know. I'm starting to get a vibe from it. What's the next question?
All right. Will says, does Frank's suspension take place in the Jägermeister Cup or the home opener?
Good question. As we understand it now, we posted a little earlier today, but as we understand it, talking to people around USL 1, where the Jägermeister Cup was first introduced, as well as talking to much smarter people that operate in and out around the league, is that the Jägermeister Cup and the regular season are commingled or combined when it comes to all disciplinary stats, all activities. This is not a separate cup like the Open Cup or the FA
It
Cup.
isn't. It isn't.
Well, exactly. But the league's perspective on how they're managing it, it is an intra cup that has the same performance standards and expectations and rules as the regular season. So based on that, um, that would mean then that Frank is not going to be eligible for the game this weekend against Westchester, which I think is a positive because we are going to need to be at full strength for the home opener against San Antonio. I know San Antonio has lost 2 games now, but we really want to have all of our, our starting 11, our best starting 11 on the pitch with us. I think this is a blessing. And then in addition to talking to people around the league, we also did some research to try to vet that. There's a player for Forward Madison. I don't remember his name, or you lose it 24 hours later, but there's a player from Forward Madison who, in their game against South Georgia Tormenta, was red carded, and he missed out on the next game, which was a regular season game. And then he was available for their next Jägermeister Cup game, which, again, he should have not been available to that game then if it was limited to just the Cup. And that's where they got knocked out by Northern Colorado Hailstorm. So based on that data and based on what we've talked around the league, yes, Frank Nodarce will not be available for the game against Westchester this weekend. But that being said, the league is not always as forthcoming. The league does really good. I think they're improving in a lot of ways with their rules and some of the things, but they have a long way to go at the same time. Hopefully, when we get to Division One status, we'll start to see some extra clarity on those kinds of things. But they could have changed it, and we haven't seen it yet. So right now, you're hearing it as we know it, but we may report by like Wednesday or Thursday when we talk to Kano what you can expect. So if that means he's not available for San Antonio, let's raise those alarms when it's appropriate. But for now, let's assume that he won't be available for Westchester. Andrew H. writes in, is there anything to learn from yesterday's game, Jason, or does a 6-minute red make it all pointless?
To a certain extent, it is pointless. But, I was happy with the fight that we saw from the team in the second half. I think there was a lot of resilience there, and the team did really well to fight back. A lot of Detroit's gamemanship really stopped our momentum there. And also didn't help that we were down a player. There was some really nice passages of play, some good sequences, some good overlaps, even some good crosses. And it was like you're afraid to crash the box, right? If you're short a man. So it felt as if they could have got one back, anything could have happened. The other thing I kind of want to bring up that I kind of thought about was at the 46th minute, we saw Rio come in. And, as a defender, if you can play a game where you're to a certain extent invisible, that can actually be really good, right?
Especially when you're down a man.
Yeah. There was never a point where man, Rio's making bad passes or making bad decisions. It was almost like it was so seamless that it was never even a thought that crossed my head. I just felt like this was a good side that was down a man really fighting back. So I think that bodes well for him. I still think, there's still one more match where we'll have him. I don't know ultimately if we'll keep him, but the fact that he played a full half against a strong Detroit and didn't make any visible mistakes, I think that's pretty good.
I think, there's 2 arguments to that, right? Because technically, and we'll talk about it when we do the actual statistical breakdown. This is just our thoughts and feelings being shared live today. And by the way, if you want any questions asked, feel free to throw them in the chat. We are trying to save space at the end of the episode tonight to answer anyone else's questions. I already see a couple in there. But, with that impact from Rio Hope Gunn, I agree with you in the sense that he played very good. The team definitely took it to Detroit in that second half when Rio came in replacing Maxi Rodriguez. But when we say what did we learn from this, the other question has to be what was Detroit trying to do to test them? Because you're up 2 goals, they're down a man. You really just need to stay compact. You need to stay in form. You need to stay not in form, sorry, in formation. You need to play the play that you need to play, which you need the 3 P's here is what I'm saying. Did Rio Hope Gunn really get the pressure test that he would need if they were both at full strength? It's hard to say. Like there was
Yeah,
definitely back and forth, but
we'll have to go check to like how much attacking they did the second half.
I think they actually had more shots than us. I think it was like 4-4 or 4-3. But like I'm just saying, was it the same level of test when this attack was all out, no gas, all gas, no brakes? That's the thing I don't know. But the other question, and this is the one I want to hear from you, is why didn't Kano immediately make a defensive sub?
Well, it's because of the flexibility of the squad, right?
Sure, Haribo drops back.
Haribo drops back. I mean, Clay can do it as well too. So there's some flexibility in a lot of the guys that we have out there that can play multiple positions. And I think he trusted them to be able to maybe at least keep it together until halftime. And then from there, he can kind of like see how the game is going. The problem is that, we gave up 2 goals there in the 17th and the 19th minute. I think that there was maybe some potential issues there. And, everyone has like defensive kind of responsibilities. And when you're down a man, someone has to pick those up. So whether that being, especially when it came to the first goal was a set piece, right? Like, are you man marking people? Are you zoning? Does then you maybe still want to try and keep someone as an outlet to try and boot it forward for a potential counterattack, or even just to try and drag the play away from your own goal. So that just kind of leaves you shorthanded there. And I think maybe there was either some miscommunication or they just someone kind of missed their defensive responsibilities. I know you had mentioned that like Maxi looked a bit flat-footed on there, and so maybe
did Krifa. Both him. So Maxi's tucked into like the 6. Krifa's on the outside, and it's actually Karifa's responsibility to track the second run. We've seen this from Krifa. Krifa's starting to develop a big problem with this, and I'm not sure what the correction is here, where you just watch him like on the second rebound or the second deflection, it's up in the air. You just watch him, just look at it, and his body doesn't move. So the person he's covering just runs right past him. Maxi's the same way, but Maxi I don't think was looking over his shoulder as much. Karifa's spatial awareness seems just to be completely gone when the ball's in the air like that. Wait, hold on, let me finish though.
Yeah, sorry.
Because then what happens is he runs into space, and where you could make the excuse for Karifa on this particular play, as opposed to what we saw back against Charleston, is without Frank Nadarsi. That's exactly where we were missing Frank Nadarsi. He's on that, well, I guess it would have been outside post at that time, but he's in that left area off of Koke's flank. He's gone. And so we don't have a tall man in the box on that side. Haribo's not like taking that area over. So that could be the only excuse, is that they ran into an area which is like historically where Nadarse covers. And so when you combine that with really poor set piece management, some flat-footed defense, some ball watching, and a missing Frank Nadarse, it's a recipe for disaster.
Yeah, the one caveat I would add to that, though, is the problem specifically seems to be in set pieces, because it is different from defending open play. That's not to say our defenders are perfect and never make mistakes when it comes to open play, but we definitely seem to have an issue when it comes to defending set pieces, where more often than not, players get caught flat-footed. So in that regards, I think they need to kind of take a look at set piece defending specifically and look at what they can do to improve that, because we keep getting punished on it, and that's not going to bode well for the rest of the season. Even if we start getting everything else back in order. I mean, like the USL show is doing a specific, piece on set pieces all throughout the year. And it is a very strong point for certain teams. Like Louisville thrived on set pieces last year, and that's how they were able to, like, you pick up an extra goal here and there. And
you willed him into existence.
I mean, it really helps, certain teams kind of get that extra edge.
We're referring to, of course, the legendary Kaylor Hodges in the chat right now. His question for the night: how are y'all doing today? We were angry. We were angry at the beginning of, well, maybe last night we were more angry, and today we're just in that, moment of malaise, because we want to be angry at someone, and it's difficult to be angry at ourselves. It's difficult to be angry at our team, and
really wish wish we had the opportunity to see these two teams match up in a full 11v11 kind of matchup.
Yeah. And Kaylor also writes in, let me also tell you, Detroit has some of the best set pieces in the U.S. straight up. I know the set piece defense isn't great for RFC, but DCFC isn't the best example to use because they are the standard.
And that's absolutely fair. But we've also seen, some of the other teams kind of beat us up there on set pieces. So it's something that I think the team should look at.
I think that there's been enough damage now done this season that it needs to be a special focus at this point. There needs to be something. I had mentioned, like, I would like to see these players just take a step. It's the same way when a keeper can't get to a ball and they just do the dive, the token dive. I like make the step and show me that you're trying to be aware of your surroundings. If you get beat, that's fine, but when you get burnt, the optics of it is just terrible. It's just terrible. And I think at this point too, like, set pieces notwithstanding, you look at the second goal that got scored, there's really a combination here of three people that really had bad nights. Krifa Yao on the ball watching on the first goal, Maxi Rodriguez ball watching on the first goal, Maxi Rodriguez getting stripped of the ball in the transition. You could tell that Rhode Island FC, the way they were moving up, they were trying to move the press forward because they were trying to move the ball forward fast. That's what they needed to do at that point with a man down. Like, they were never going to wear down a Detroit defense on a combination of plays. They had the ball, they were trying to move quickly. Maxi got stripped of the ball right at about the half line, but the momentum was shifting. Like, Detroit pivoted and did a high block, pressed in, got the ball, and one pass. And Krifa Yao is never going to beat a defender who's already at speed. Like, he can't get going that fast, and he didn't respect Smith on the breakout. He didn't give him the space. And then meanwhile, I think Koke jumped the gun. I think he was anticipating moving into his sweeper role of being that third, center back. And I think that because the ball transitioned so fast, he was probably about 10 steps further out than he was supposed to be, right? He was cheating a little bit. And I think you have to, because you have to be able to set up quickly to relieve the pressure. Like, if Maxi had just passed that backwards, then we'd be fine. We would have reset and moved on. But Haribo was out of position trying to cover the upper left flank because Aldair was already too far forward. Maxi loses the ball, and it's one pass, one touch, and a chip, and it's the second goal in just as many minutes. Maxi, Krifa, and Zach Haribo, I don't blame as much because he suddenly got thrust into a different role on the night.
Definitely capitulated there when a few minutes, kind of got sucker punched, and it took a while for the team to really kind of adjust and get their bearings there.
It was not great. And but again, back to Andrew's question, are those lessons that can be learned? Hard to say, because everything is the playbook is thrown out the window when you get punched in the mouth like that, and no one knows what they're going to do at that time. So I can say, and I think we've said it a couple times now, though, it was good to see them with the fighting spirit. You would hope for at least maybe like a concession goal at that point, for like as hard as they started working in the second half, but it didn't come. So this game now feels pretty, not good. And I kind of want to pivot here and talk. We joked about this on the episode last night. Is Detroit City quietly or very quickly, maybe loudly even, are they becoming a rival? Because you and I and everyone listening knows that they are the heel of the USL. The fans are the heels. The team has now become the heel. Is this just a team that we have to hate because everybody hates them? Like, I remember when traveling fans and supporters were coming up and they were like, when Detroit comes, just ignore them. Nobody likes Detroit. That being said, the geography wise, they're closer than us than most. We've now had a lot of different bad results, nothing really going our favor. Lots of early beef that's going on between the supporters group cultures, the performances on the pitch. Isaac Engen got hurt at Keyworth last year. I mean, is this a team that is a rivalry forming around us, and we can't see it because we're caught in this, and there's just so much anger that we think is directed in a different manner? Is there a real rivalry going at this point with this team?
Potentially, but I mean, like Kaylor says here, I think that they really embrace being the heel. I mean, those who saw the broadcast saw like on TV, they had the tifo there most hated supporters group in the US, and they seem to wear that as a badge of honor, and they try and rile everyone up. I definitely think there's potential there. I think for it to be a real rivalry, I mean, to put the ball in our court, we still need to beat them. At this point, we just don't like them, and they don't like anybody. So if we can if it can get to a point where there's some back and forth, where we do play them again later this season, right?
We may play them again much sooner than that.
Yeah, there's some more potential. I'm trying to. For a second I forgot how they changed the season. I remember we just lose some West Coast matches.
Yeah, they can't touch the Eastern.
So yeah, so we still have one more match against them later this season at home. Potentially, like you mentioned,
we could have a Jägermeister Cup too if we go deep into that. Like there could be multiple touches against them.
So if we can turn it around, then maybe a rivalry can develop there, especially because sure, Hartford did win, and sorry, Kaler, but like Birmingham still hasn't figured out what they're doing yet. So yeah, I wouldn't give them too much credit there. They kind of probably just played them at the right time after just firing their coach, and they're kind of going through a transition.
Yeah, but Hartford got sucked into this rivalry. Like they were at home eating a bowl of Cheerios, and we just Kool-Aid punched through their wall and said, we are at war. And they were like, we don't even know where our pants are right now. Like Hartford was not prepared for this in any way, shape, or form. Yeah, Hartford's not even prepared for their own series.
Everyone in New England just loves to bag on Hartford, or Connecticut in general, kind of. So that is very much.
Yeah, but if Hartford was doing better like you said, they knew for 2019. If Hartford had something going for them in the years leading up to it, they could sit there and go, you haven't done anything yet. You haven't proven yourself. Like you haven't won an Open Cup match yet. But instead, they just fumbled the ball. I know it's the wrong
Ironically,
sport.
they actually have talented players, and they did last year too. And
they had Jay Chapman, they had Ryan Williams, who were just a huge problem for us on the weekend. It's hard to say. I will say this though, just to move on. I was really surprised at Detroit City's way of how they treated Maxi Rodriguez. I know it's a game, and at the end of the day, he's not playing with them anymore. And I know that you have to take every advantage possible to win. So like, I understand but messing with
fans, him. Like they don't how
I don't know. Like that was the thing. Like it was the pregame, it was the during the game, like the keyboard warriors that were on, calling him soft, putting him as the spokesperson for Charmin Ultra, doing his like blooper reel from the game when he got pulled at the half, which I understand why Kano pulled him. His stats were not good and his performance seemed to be suffering. But then like having the fans, like, where are you? Like, where are you, Maxi? Where are you? To me, that's the kind of thing you do when a player has left for your rival or left the team and went on to trash talk your club, you as the fan base, and like loves the shiny new thing they're with. I haven't really seen that from Maxi yet. We've asked him, like, would you celebrate a goal if you scored? He's like, absolutely not. Like that organization is nothing but class. I love everyone there. I did this for me. I mean, it was his contract, right? Like he was the big free agent of the season. If Detroit couldn't pay for it, that's on them. But like this vitriol and hate that seemed to be going to him, it seems to be going beyond the boundary of like sport, like just being a hooligan and like, causing a player to have a bad day. Maybe this is just me looking at it from a side that I don't understand DCFC supporter culture, but I would never do that to a player on our side, especially at least if he had the mileage and he had the moments that Maxi Rodriguez has for Detroit City FC. Like that just doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, like if we had a player with us for 4 years, did well every year, and then just went to a random team that not a rival, hey, good for them.
Yeah, like there's a difference between talking about open goal Sadie and talking about Kofi Chumesi, right? Both played probably the same amount of minutes, but one stayed with us for the entire season. Like Gabby Alves, Mark Doyle, they're going to go on to be loved for the rest of the time. If we end up running them into another game, Connor McGlynn, even to a certain extent, like I just don't see even Sadie. I'm not going to trash on Sadie unless we're losing, and then I have nothing else to yell at that game. But like other than that, like especially after the game, I would never create a meme or an image that would hurt the play. Like I don't know. Maybe I'm just built differently as a fan. I don't got that hooligan in me to do it, but
You don't got that dog in you.
I was surprised. I was very surprised. Moving on though, because we don't want to run 2 hours on this, Monday mailbag here.
Tyler here wants to know if there are any injury updates.
So none that I know of. We'll find out on Wednesday for the Thursday show. I can say, Hugo Bacharach is ever closer. He, the 1 to 2 month window that we got in March would put him at about May 1st, plus or minus 1 to 2 weeks. So, he could be available for the San Antonio game. It's obviously some sort of knee. They've never told us the actual specifics of the injury, but it's obviously something to do with his knee. We still don't even know if he came to Rhode Island FC damaged or if he got hurt. Because we were there week 1 for first media day, and he was already laid up. So hard to say. Rivera is now he's got his Instagram. He's doing his agility trainings, so he's getting closer. I would put him at like 2 weeks probably if he's already doing the kind of training that he's doing. King is looking better. King will tell you he wants to play on the home opener, but I think we need to wrap him in bubble wrap and really let him settle. The dude's just been injury prone his entire career. I think we really want him to be as strong as possible. I don't want to see him till July unless we have that emergency, break glass kind of situation. And then as for Chico and Ibarra, I was led to believe that was an availability report, and when we saw them for the Hearts of Pine game, it was just because they weren't going to be playing. We later learned that Chico's potentially suffering from some sort of lower body knock. Don't know what that's from. Didn't see anything at the Hearts of Pine, at the Roots game that would warrant that. So, he's now had 2 weeks off then. So he should be available, but we'll find out on Wednesday. And then Mark Ibarra, I don't know how he could be injured, but I didn't see it, and he traveled with the team. So that doesn't mean he isn't, but basically that's a long way of saying I don't know, and that's the current status of all of our players' health there. Taras this is the big one here. Are we in trouble, Jason, or is it a lot like last year, and we're just going to figure it out deeper into the series?
I'd say it's too early to say that we're in trouble. This could have been a very different match if we had 11 players on the field. Not going to say that we were going to win it, but could have been another hard-fought 1-1 draw like last year. And then at that point, you'd say, all right, well, our last 3 games are 2 wins and a draw. It's hard to play against a team down a man unless you are playing against a absolutely lesser opposition, like you're playing against an amateur side where the reality is you're just so much better than them, and it doesn't matter that you're down a player. So it's hard to read too much into that match where we actually are on terms of form. I think there's maybe some unluckiness here about some of injuries and maybe decisions that some of our players have made, kind of just putting us in some bad spots here. I wouldn't be worried until maybe June-ish if we haven't kind of figured something out by then. Because remember last year, the difference was we weren't losing, but we were just drawing every match.
We were trying to come all together and figure it out.
Yeah. So I'd say that, when was that Louisville match? June 15th or something, week of June, yeah. Where, we kind of, went into their house and sucker punched them, and that kind of turned the tides for our season. So I still think it's a little too early. So
yeah. And I think Harry beat me to the punch on this one. But the other big thing we have to remember here is we have yet to play a game at home, right? This team is fueled by the fans. They get up, they show up for the moments in front of the fans. And we've had one game where we've been able to travel in any kind of version of numbers. And we saw the success that they had at that Open Cup match, a very hard fought match. So it's hard to pin everything right now on doom and gloom when we have yet to have, it's still a very long season. I know it doesn't feel like it because we're coming into the end of April, but there's many more games to come in this season. And we have 17 chances at home to prove that at Centerville Bank Stadium. So I don't think that that's going to be as big of a case now. But that being said, there still are questions on this defense, right? This is obviously now we've tried to say oh, JJ Chico's not scoring, Fuson, where is he? I think if we had to focus on one thing over the next 30 days, we have to figure out that defense, because whether or not we knew Bacharak was injured coming into it, and Kaler had a comment like they would have known if he was available in 2025 per the CBA. All I'm saying is like, did we know if he'd be available game 1 or by game 15? Regardless, we knew that Batrack wouldn't be available for the first 6 to 10 games. Coach Kano could not or did not make the decision to do a replacement. This Hope Gunn contract was only in response to the Zach Haribo red card, and that will be quickly running out. It's unclear if he will be, signing a extension and getting a full year's contract. I would like to see it done if they can navigate it on the cheap. But the reality is that this team is not punching at the same level that they were on a defensive shape. And I think the answer to that right now is truly that we're still in a spiral trying to solve for the lack of Boris Dugan and the lack of Steven Turnbull. And I think we need to give more credit where credit is due. Turnbull was a quiet, reliable, non-flashy.
He was a consistent like 7.0 in fought mob every match.
Yeah, and
every single match.
Morris Dugan was always probably our best defender of the back three. Right now, and this is just me putting the tinfoil hat back on because I'm starting to get a little desperate here. I've been tracking Morris's playing numbers, and he did not play in the last 2 games prior to this weekend, and then he was a sub on in the game against who are they playing?
FC Dallas, I think.
Yeah,
we were watching some of that. Yeah.
And so he's started to slowly get moved back down the pecking order, which we said at the beginning of the season. It was great to see him getting the starts. It was great to see him get player of the match. But Minnesota United had gone out and signed an all-star left center back. So with the team already stacked, and remember, Dugan couldn't even get minutes on that team last year. Bacharak got more minutes with Minnesota United than Dugan did last season. They have the other mechanic, right? Nick's his twin brother. Like, there's a very good reality that as good as Dugan is as good as he is, he may want to go and get more minutes to continue to develop. I mean, like, if he was able to make the jump and start making some quality minutes playing alongside their captain Boxall for the MLS, and they don't have a spot for him this season, they can't trade him, they can't sell him, why not send him back to a team he's already comfortable with and let him shine and get more of that time to develop and then see what happens at the end of the season? Or, hey, you know what? They should just talk and go, hey, we know you're down a Bacharak right now. We'll give you a Dugan until Leagues Cup. I'll take it. I'll take Morris Dugan for 4 to 5 games. Loan. Heck yeah. If we don't extend Hope Gunn's contract, we better have Dugan on the way, or we better have another like defender from the MLS coming down to be loaned to this team. Yeah, because we are not going like that, and that's the key thing. All jokes aside, we're not going to be the Rhode Island FC we were last season. Unfortunately, right now, with the depth we have, we saw Frank Nodarse, Krifa Yao, and Grant Stoneman. We've seen this experiment, Jason. We saw it before and up to that game against Louisville. It never got us wins. It got us really interesting or boring draws at best when they were firing all cylinders. But when we had those draws, they were 0-0s. They were 1-1s. They couldn't connect to the offense. They couldn't build a complete game, or we wouldn't win the game outright. We had 2 wins going into June, and one of those was the June game. So I don't know that this defense is going to be up to par to get us back to where we want to be for a strong playoff run. And it's not that it's early anymore. We are starting to move the wrong direction. And I think reinforcements or some answers need to be solved for on that back line.
Yeah, I think if they don't sign Rio, they probably need someone else, because we've seen with the consistency of this back line, someone's going to get injured and someone's going to get red carded. And we can't keep putting Clay and Haribo back there. Like, worst case, if they need to rotate there last 10 minutes or something, you're just trying to get someone else some minutes, fine, fair enough. They can do that. But the reality is, if this team wants to be as successful as they were last year, we need another defender.
Yeah.
I mean, hey,
or we need the defenders we have to take a step up. I see Grant Stoneman now with more KT tape on him than like a broken vase, and like I'm wondering what's holding him together. He may need rest, and with all of the games coming up, we have some important midweek games coming up. I don't know if you remember a certain team 25 minutes away that's coming down on a midweek. Like there are some things there. I want to ask this question and interject. Tim McDuff asks a really good question. Did Dugan make Yao better? Yao had a rough start to his RFC career, but became a beast by year's end. I don't think Actually, I'm gonna let you go first. Go ahead. I'm sorry. I will let you. You're the tactical genius here.
I'm not a tactical genius. The
Allegedly.
one thing I was just gonna say was that most defenders are not complete packages, right? We're not, especially in this league, we're not talking about like Maldini or something here. So if you can build around someone's strengths and have partnerships that complement each other, so one of Yao is very good about like being that rock in the center there, but he's not fast, right? He's very good at like making that one tackle to stop the play, but if it gets past him, there's not much he can do there. So depending upon if he was combined with, it was Dugan and Stoneman or Dugan and O'Darcy. And while I wouldn't say Dugan is fast, he's not slow in any way, right? So between those two, I think that they had a very good way to kind of cover for each other. And towards the end of the year, it always felt like there was a lot of rotation. Everyone kind of knew, all right, I'm going forward, you're stepping back. That like everything kind of got into sync. So in a way, did maybe he make him look better by like papering over some of Yao's deficiencies? But probably. And that doesn't mean that Yao is a bad defender in any way, but like he has certain limitations to his game. And I think that he's just getting exposed right now and having to, he's getting put in bad positions because as a whole, our back line has not been consistent.
Yeah, but there's a difference between Dugan papering over Yao's mistakes. I think when you look at the spirit of that question and you really think about it, when you have a really good player playing next to you and they're doing their job, your job gets easier, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So when you say like better on the stats, I think Yao benefited from Dugan's presence on the team. But I'm not sure now looking back that Yao took something from it and became a better defender. I don't know. I would have to go. I haven't done like a deeper 2025 stat check yet, and it's when you look at just the results alone, it's pretty condemning at times, especially when I think the last 3 goals that have gone into the net against Rhode Island FC have been Yao failing to collapse or do something. But that being said, I don't know that Yao has improved. Like that's the thing. Is Yao at the ceiling of what he can do? And we benefited from a player like Dugan collecting the problems, and then Nodarce or Stoneman on the other side. You said it just now. Yao is in the center of our defense. Yao has to kind of dictate terms. Yao has to almost be, to a certain extent, the best player, the most reliable defender of our back three, because one, he plays the most minutes, and two, he kind of marshals and dictates terms, right? Like if the left is a little out of sorts, he slides over and he covers. If the right's a little out of sorts, he slides over and he covers. If he hasn't made the next step up and he benefited from better players around him, like at what point, I guess, do you say, like, if we let's just run the fun thing here where we say Bacharak is back and he's healthy, he's ready to go. We envision him as a left center back. Would you pull Stoneman or Darce at this point, or is Yao the one at risk of losing his job in the middle?
I would not pull Yao.
So you think Yao is as good or better? I mean, Darce is having a very inconsistent time of his season so far.
Stoneman seems like he can only play every few games. Like you said, he seems like he's almost half broken, and maybe he just hasn't got the ability to get the rest he needs to really fully recover. No, Darce, it seems maybe very confidence based in the sense of like he's just struggling a little bit, and maybe he needs to kind of get himself sorted out there a bit, because we've seen him be very dominant, right? Not only was he a great defender last year, but like, didn't he have like 6 goals and like 3 assists or something? Like he was contributing to the attack as well. Yao, like one of the things too that like I didn't mention there, such a strong point with him is he is so strong. There are times when you can watch that he can just stand there like a rock and hold you back. And you
the
can't
water
get to
just
the ball.
crashes
Like
against you. Yeah, you can't do anything.
You can't move him, right? He is an immovable object. So it kind of adds that like absolute unit strength to our back line that maybe some of the other defenders don't have.
But are we benefiting though with that strength, or because we play this high press 3-5-2 transition team, do we need someone a little faster? Like, we need the strength. I don't deny that at all.
I think if we get towards later in the year and everything is still a mess, then maybe we have to think a bit more serious about this.
So then, is it dangerous? Because Nodarce, I mean, he won't be playing at the next game, but like his position should be in a hot seat right now. Is it dangerous to have a player like Yao who's now made 3 to 4 mistakes? Obviously, it's a team game, but like when you're basically thinking, and like you're saying right now, listen, you are the center back of center backs right now for us. Is it dangerous that he's not improving? Is there danger in not seeing him grow into his role?
The problem with being a center back is people only remember the mistakes. It's a thankless job. Like against Portland Hearts of Pine, he was dominant that game, right? He was an aerial that the strength, he was holding people back. He was a dominant in the air. People don't remember that because he got sent off.
Well, and Titus Washington scored the goal by running past him.
Yeah, but at that point, there's a whole midfield in for like you said, it's a team game. So how is it then all of a sudden one person's fault?
Listen, I wanted to draw out your Karifa Yao apologist in you. Okay, that's all I just was looking for on the night. Like, I get it. My point is not to bash Karifa Yao, and I'm just saying when we look very shaky right now in the back, and we don't have the rotational options. When we start to see that, could Yao lose his role? Is the only question I'm asking.
I don't think so.
Okay. Let's move on. Leo actually kind of to double down on that asked the question, is there a difference in how our defense, especially our CV group, is trying to play this season? So kind of take what we just said about is Yao getting better, or was he benefiting from Dugan? Is our back line playing differently, which is causing some of our tactical issues here? Or have we just been suffering from a lot of unfortunate events and errors?
I'd say it's a lot of unfortunate errors and events. The one thing different I would see that I've seen consistently this year that maybe I don't remember seeing as much last year is, we play a 3-5-2, but that can very easily out of possession become, like a 5-3-2. But this year I've seen a lot of times when we have Aldair Sanchez on the field, there are times where it almost looked more like a 4-back line where he will drop into a like legitimate left back position. Part of that, I think, also stems from the fact that we really don't have, at least healthy right now, a legitimate right wing back. So what that can maybe allow for is there are times where it'll look like a solid back line. Maybe if it's Holstad on there, he will kind of move more to almost create like a 4-4-2 at times. There aren't long period stretches of play where I've seen this happen, but I've seen it happen multiple games. And then, this team is very flexible. A lot of players are comfortable in multiple positions. So they kind of rotate based upon their opponent, based upon whether it's in or out of possession. But I don't remember last year seeing us line up very often in a 4-back line like that. Similarly, I've seen us also still do the 5-back line thing. But I don't know if there's a bit of more rotation now that we have a quote unquote like left back per se and Aldair Sanchez, because Quizera was never really a left wing back. He's a left winger, a striker kind of that we fashioned in that regards to
Right.
play up and down that
Mark
field.
was very good about swinging out wide and pressing the ball further out into the flank.
And to Quizera's credit, like he'll track back and maybe defensively, that's not his strong suit, but he will kind of press and kind of get in the player's face to know that their presence is there, that he's not just gonna not help out the rest of the squad.
I agree. I don't have, and I think it's the defense, but I think it's because I don't blame it on the right wing back. I think maybe what's going on is it's the way have you noticed we're not really doing the possession that we thought we'd be doing? We've been doing a lot of route one with both of our keepers this season so far. It's been a lot of where there's a failure, it feels like, to break out in the midfield. I feel like we recycle a lot of possession, so we're having our highest combinations be between like Nodarce and Yao to Vegas, whereas in the past I think we benefited from with the midfield being as high up as they were. I feel like we would have benefited a lot more often back in the day of just being able to say like, hey, when we play deep, we have players up. Like we can make the connections, we can move vertically, whether that's up the wing or centrally. maybe there's an issue because we keep rotating our midfield too, that like they can't seem to find it. I've seen gaps in space in our midfield that just don't quite make sense, where we're leaving too much room for the other team to, you know, have interceptions, or they can cut routes out that we normally used to have last season.
Well, think about what last year our midfield was: Ibarra, Holstad, and Hervo. That was probably the best kind of midfield triforce that we had there. And all three of those players, like, superb defenders as well as able to contribute to the attack.
Right. I right now,
So
I
at
think the
this point,
midfield, I think the midfield disconnect is the problem, but the defense has to be better. I know it's not fair to put it on the defense, but they have to be able to weather the storm, because otherwise we can't. As soon as we go down, we've seen this now. When we go down first, we have not won a game when we go down first in like 15 matches.
years.
That's well, I mean, that's actually true as well. But let's move on here. This is a weird statement. I've only put it in because, you know, like I said, when you put stuff in the mailbag, as long as you're not swearing or saying anything inappropriate. But Joe wrote in, it looks like the Revs are coming alive with the return of Campagna, linking up to Gil and Ganago. It looks like the players still want to play for their coach. It should be a fight on May 7th. Jason, what do you respond to that statement?
Hashtag not an MLS podcast.
You better believe it. How dare you, Joe?
I
mean, I get where he's going. He's
yeah,
saying
no,
the Revs are
get it.
starting to get hot. They seem to be turning around their season. It's 2 games. Let's not pretend.
No, let's calm down here. They've just got rid of Noel Buck, and basically anyone who is not one of Porter's boys is
the 2021
is
Revolution is now in the 2025 San Jose Earthquakes. Yeah, we get it. We get it.
So, look, I'll say this. You know, we don't know how serious the Revs are going to take this match. Historically, MLS sides tend to field a combination of MLS2 like players in terms of, and then as long with some bench players and maybe 1 or 2 starters who are maybe coming back on the mend and need some minutes here and there. And they'll have some starters on the bench. And if it gets close, they'll throw them on in the last 20, 30 minutes to see if they can finish it off. So I don't know where their head is. If what you're saying is they're turning around their season, well, their ultimate goal would be to get into playoffs. So in that regards, well, then you're saying they're more likely going to take the weekend games more seriously, and they're more likely to rotate against Rhode Island and just put out the kids there. And, you know, maybe Jack Paniotu's return to Centerville Bank Stadium against RIFC will happen.
Well, so it's hard to say, because the two things
we don't know what's in their head.
But you could also argue, to that same point, their chances of winning the MLS Cup are fleeting fast. You know, they can get into the playoffs, and then you can say that anything is possible thing. But come on, there are much better teams this year, and while anything is possible, they are really going to have to turn it on. Second, they can't win the Eastern Conference. They can't win the Supporter Shield. So the only piece of hardware that they can actively win right now is the Open Cup. So
they can't win the Open Cup.
Well, I mean, but
I know you say that, but they're just getting better right now. Like, sure, could they theoretically? Sure, but they'll get cooked by Columbus.
I'm not discounting that. I am simply saying that, you know, right now, Coach
honestly,
Porter,
Detroit would probably punch their teeth in.
But Porter seems to be kind of coaching from a hot seat. I mean, he is in a hot seat, right?
Yeah.
He needs wins. He needs the impression. We talked about this when we first found out about it. There are implications to this Open Cup game that are beyond just, you know, an underdog fighting a top or a more professional team, if you will. There's a lot more that goes to this. I'm not surprised. I wouldn't be surprised if Porter wants to at least make a first act of saying, because think about it. Porter wins everything here if he puts a very strong lineup out against Rhode Island FC, wins, and then, nobody cares from the Revolution if they win against Detroit City FC. Nobody cares. Nobody cares if they have to play the Chicago Fire in Open Cup. Nobody cares, but they have to beat Rhode Island FC from a certain perspective, a certain optics. And Toronto FC is almost at the bottom of the table themselves. So that's a game that if they are starting to fire on all cylinders, they can go get those points over the weekend and then set up. And then if I don't know who their next one is the following Saturday, they can throw that game away.
Yeah, they definitely.
That's what I would do, by the way, if I was Porter.
they have to win in terms of an optic standpoint because it won't look good. But I also wonder, it's hard to say because a lot of their fans online, like, do they represent the actual regular Revs people? Like, I don't.
No, they don't. They don't.
And
But
so
they're going to want to
do
come to
those
this game.
people care?
Yes, they're going to. This is the game, and that's the thing. This is the casual. This is the fight for the casual heart and soul. Yeah, there you go. Honestly, like, these are people who have kind of like faded away from paying attention to the Revs. They know about this Rhode Island FC thing, or they know now that there's this Rhode Island team that they have to go play, and there's going to be curiosity. This is going to be a very watched match.
I guess in a way, is it them fighting for Southern New England and Rhode Island area to kind of say, that's cool, they have their shiny thing, but we're still the bigger team, maybe?
I don't know. All I can tell you is I don't know what coach it was. I don't have my notes open for it from last time, but there's a coach that famously said, "I will always compete for the matches that are put in front of me, but I can't get fired for losing in the Open Cup. I can only get fired for not winning an MLS Cup or not winning in the regular season."
Bruce Arena.
I think it's Bruce Arena. I think it is.
I'm pretty sure that is Bruce Arena.
I'm pretty sure
like 99% sure that's him.
2021
Bruce Arena. He historically didn't care about that cup. When I was talking about, LA Galaxy historically would be like, here's our LA Galaxy 2 squad. If they win the match, cool, maybe we'll take this seriously. But outside of that, they don't care about that.
Mike Welch is in the chat. He agrees. He thinks it's a massive game for New England soccer in general. So he knows that Coach Porter is going to field a very strong side.
We'll have to talk to some of their, from their side and kind of see how they're.
It's a good thing we're in a network that covers soccer with the Blazing Musket. I think we have some excellent guests coming up soon to talk everything about that. I will say one final thing on that note, though, about Rhode Island FC versus the Revs. If we fail to get a result against the San Antonio FC on the home opener, that game is the very next game. There is a weird path forward, Jason, where we may not win the first game in Centerville Bank Stadium and the Revolution could. Is that a history? Is that a mark, a demerit in history that we want to put on that stadium and on this club?
Why did you even speak that out into the world?
Others have. I heard it from Matt Kerwin, so that's why.
I definitely think that wouldn't be necessarily great from our standpoint.
Makes it suddenly like now when you start looking at the bigger picture. I mean, I don't care if the trolls hold that over it, but like just personally, I don't want that. I mean, we're gonna win against San Antonio, so I'm not worried so much. But like, if it got to that, there's suddenly a big implication on that.
Yeah, I don't think it would be great. The one thing I would argue is that all they can celebrate in 30 years of their history. They have one Open Cup win.
The benefit
and they won at a minor league and a minor league.
Oh, how dare you say the ML words? I will say this.
That's what they would call it.
It wouldn't kind of matter in that sense because technically, they don't get the first ever win. That would go to San Antonio then, unless it's a draw. Oh well, then if it's a draw, so we can't draw. We have to win. We have to win against San Antonio. There's no this. You know what? I may change my entire philosophy.
Sorry, Harry Austin.
This may be a must-win game. That's not actually a must-win game. That is absolutely a must-win game.
Okay.
San Antonio has just become a must-win game.
First must-win game of the season.
Well, that was against
Portland Hearts.
Yeah. But this may be my first. This may be me needing to break my own rules and call this a must-win game for the optics. Last question of the night, and this is an important one. Sam wrote this in, and I'm curious if RFC does advance in the Open Cup. Do you want to see them take on Chicago or Detroit City FC? Whoever's the winner of that one would come and play. If we advance, they'd come and play us at Tidewater just a couple weeks later, like May 16th or May 17th or something like that.
I was thinking in the episode that didn't actually happen, it was allegedly, I think I answered Detroit. But then
you said Chicago.
No, I definitely said Detroit. It didn't. But that episode didn't happen. You know what we're talking about. Are they in our Jägermeister Cup group?
Detroit? No.
Okay.
We have Pittsburgh.
Okay. Because then I was like, wait, is that going to be breaking the rule of like I don't want to see a team too often?
But we could. I mean, if we make a run in Jägermeister,
if it happens, it happens.
They do. We could see them again. Yeah.
The fact that we're playing Hartford 3 times this. Maybe a little too much, especially considering.
It just goes back to the rivalry that could be building here. Listen, the right answer is this. everyone's thinking Chicago is this pusher, which they are not. Greg Berhalter has somehow constructed a really
Kevin De
good team.
Bruyne is on his way.
Kevin De Bruyne, Windy City,
He
1901
loves
or
Polish
1701 or whatever they are. Yeah, they're a real deal. That is irrelevant to this because, well, if we advance, we've already knocked out an MLS team. There's nothing left to prove from the, US.
Knock out more MLS teams.
But there's nothing to prove from a Division 1 versus Division 2. We did our job. I want Detroit City FC, and I want them bad because this has the ability. When we talk about building momentum, you go and let Detroit do what they did to us and then get away with it, and then we have to wait till August to get our revenge on them, or we can just say, hey, you know what? That didn't phase us in the slightest. Maxi Rodriguez can just play out of his mind for 90 minutes and just become the hero that he's, because let's get honest, Maxi Rodriguez has struggled with this team so far this year. He has put up some very good numbers quietly, but he hasn't done anything splashy. And when he's off or when he's not on top of his game, there seems to be a breakdown in his ability.
He's definitely still in that gelling process.
Correct.
And we talked about this, a few questions ago, how one of our strengths last year was that midfield triforce that we had. So now we swapped him out, and maybe we gotta.
It's a learning curve.
We gotta go into one of those fiery mountains or a water temple or something and get the next piece to kind of get everything sorted back out.
We need to put all three pieces of the silver monkey statue together so we can win Legends of the Hidden Temple. I never know why that was so difficult for those kids, but listen,
it was rigged.
It actually was. There's a documentary on it. It was completely rigged, and I hate to ruin that for fans of Legends of the Hidden Temple, but I will say this: I want Detroit. Because this again, we go and smash them, our season takes off. That is fuel for a regular season restart. Beating Chicago or playing Chicago next, it just says like, yeah, we're as good as Division 1, but we already know that. Like, we know that on any day, teams cup sets are real, right? That it's a thing that happens. We've been cup set in the US Open Cup before. If we had already made it through Evolution, I don't even care if we win the Open Cup or not. We did our job. That's all that mattered. But if we can get Detroit, I want Detroit. I want the harder match. I want to steel sharpen steel. I know Sean Fecto's in the chat right now. I love that saying. And right now we need to sharpen. We need to steel up, and we need to steal 3 points from Detroit City FC when they come to Centerville Bank Stadium. And that's all there is to it. And if you want Chicago Fire because you want to see Kevin De Bruyne, that's the only other fair answer.
I was just joking.
They're in the hunt. Dude, Chicago is notorious for picking up like German and Belgian players. Bastian Schweinsteiger, I can't even say his name right. Schweinsteiger, he almost won the World Cup for Chicago Fire. I will not hear any slander towards the Stagger. Watch. If he goes there, you're going to feel really silly. Really silly. All right, let's get into these final questions that have been thrown up in the chat. If you have any final questions, please throw them in now because we're going to wrap things up quickly afterwards. Jason, Mike Welch wants to know, what is your favorite Tool song? # not a Tool podcast.
Ooh, good one. Right now I have 46 and 2 stuck in my head, but I think my actual favorite Tool song, probably Numa. The drums on that track are phenomenal.
Okay. Let me scroll back up here and we can get the next one here. Go for it.
What are the only 4 Rhode Island podcasts ranked higher than Raising Anchor, and why are you better than each of them? Good question here.
Eat our humble pie here. Yeah. So this is all going off of an analytical site that like takes statistics of total episodes, listener counts, fan activity across the accounts, engagements, all that stuff. So the 4 that are above us are as follows. So the Friar podcast is the #1 podcast consumed in Rhode Island. They obviously cover the Friars. Yeah. They've been around longer, and then the Friars have been doing things longer, so that's a thing. Weird Island is the next. It's #2 in the list. So they cover kind of all things weird within Rhode Island. Started kind of as a true crime thing and moved on to like, did you know stuff. So there's a lot of that in Rhode Island, like fandom, as far as things like, I always think of Jason Allard, who does a band in Rhode Island. Ironically, he doesn't have a podcast, but his YouTube series is fantastic. The #3 one is Newsmakers from the WPRI. So this is just this is Tim White and Ted Nessie doing their in-depth pieces covering like the politicians and stuff. So that's kind of we can't compete with the news. Like, right, let's not pretend. And then #4, which I thought this one was weird. I thought this was the #1 podcast consumed in Rhode Island, but we are knocking on the door. We're right there. The Boston Globe, Jason, we are right behind the Boston Globe with the Rhode Island report. Their in-depth, like where they dive a little deeper into the stories of the week covering Rhode Island, because Boston Globe has to have a Rhode Island chapter too. We can't just rely on the Providence Journal and all the hard work that they do there. So we are right behind the Boston Globe, and that is us. Then it's us at number 5. I will say, I haven't really advertised yet. I'm working on like how I want to market this, but the Rhode Island Monthly favorite, like best of awards, are out or to vote right now. So if you guys can do us a solid for the 41 people listening live and the 1,000 people that are going to listen, the 1,000 plus people that we're going to listen tomorrow, please take the time, go into Rhode Island Monthly. We'll put a link out eventually, but you can do it too. You guys know how to Google. I trust all of you. You're all smart people. You're all
you found us.
You're intelligent. Yeah, you're listening to us. So go on to Rhode Island Monthly, scroll way down to best of podcast, and write in Rhode Island. Write in Rhode Island. Don't write in Rhode Island. See, look, they're gonna do that now. Go. You told me. I'm a smart person.
Hey,
write in Raising Anchor podcast.
If they win it, I'll take it.
Here's the difficult thing though. You can vote for everything right then and there. If you want to take the time and do all the rest of it, make sure you got like 10 minutes to like really like sit down and do it. If you want to waste your one vote for that one email on just us, then I also respect and appreciate that too. But I really want to win this year. If we are if we lose best podcast, I want to lose to one of those top 4. Like that's it. Like, well, I don't want to lose to the Boston Globe, but I want to lose to like Weird Island or the Friars podcast. Last year's podcast that beat us, they're not even Rhode Island based anymore. Like, and they talk about like they covered Glee and the Vampire Diaries. Like they're just pop culture that there's like, we watched Glee last night and it was gleeful. Like, come on. We're better than that, Rhode Island. So we need you guys to all rally behind us. And that's my request. So we'll start pumping that and harassing her. I think the voting closes at the end of we have like 10 days. We have been so bad about this. They're going to go from 0 votes for Raising Anchor to 1,000 overnight. I'm ready for it. So anyways, those are that. Let's see if there's any final questions here. No, that's it. No one else wants to hear us talk anymore.
Lots of comments there, kind of going along with what we were talking about.
Yeah, I mean that's how people participate in the show. So that's all I got. You got anything? Any final thoughts? Any final remarks on your side?
Looking forward to the Westchester game. I know you're listening, John Morrissey. We had maybe talked about trying to get you some hot wieners. Based upon the time of the game, we would have to bring you. I mean, granted, the reality is it's 3 hours away. So, like, if you're going to use the term fresh, we were going to find some sort of heat encapsulated bag.
Those pizza bags, yeah.
The problem is none of the places, at least any of the good ones, are going to be open to get this to you in a realistic time. So when are they doing that? Like,
so here, yeah.
We'll just show up at the Portland game with hot wieners and just steal the show and be like, here you go.
Are they flying to Portland?
Yeah, they're going to Portland.
No, I know they're going to Portland, but I don't think they're flying into Portland. I figure they're going to fly into Boston.
Show up.
So here's a commitment. All right, here's a commitment from Jason and I to you guys. We will meet you at Boston. We'll meet you at Logan International if you're flying into Boston, and when you land, you will get catered a Rhode Island delicacy for everyone that's coming from the USL show. We will give you a Rhode Island delicacy. We're not driving you up to Portland because I don't even know if we can.
Or also just commit to come to Centerville Bank Stadium.
They should. You guys should. If you haven't booked your flight yet, you should actually just fly into Providence. I know it's a little bit more difficult because of like layovers and cost of flights, but you should just fly into TF Green, get your car rental there, make a 1-hour pit stop, do some recordings, do some content for Centerville Bank Stadium, whatever's going on. You've only added an hour and like some minutes to your drive, and then head up to Portland. And trust me, you'll have a better flight in Logan compared to Providence. There's a reason we're the best regional airport, international airport in the world. Okay, like don't disrespect TF Green. I won't hear it. But yeah, we can't bring the hot wieners down. They open too late for us to make it down on time. So we'll figure something else out. But can't wait to see John Morrissey at Westchester. It's going to be insane. I'm hearing over 100 people now officially for Rhode Island FC's traveling group. So I don't know if Westchester has 100 fans yet. They're only like 5 games in themselves. So it's going to be exciting. I can't wait to see Connor McGlynn, Prince Sadie, and just kind of see what that whole project's been up to, because we've been in those shoes and we know what it's like to be an expansion team. So really exciting stuff. Anything else?
No, let's wrap it up here. As usual, we're never under hour 15.
Why would we want to be at this point? The people know what they get. They just put us at speed 1.5 or 2, and they get it done on their commutes. They know they're professional. Again, smart people, Jason. They are smart people who are going to vote for us in Rhode Island Monthly's best of.
Fair enough. All right, y'all. Make sure to check out our friends for all of your New England soccer coverage, including RFC, and that's at theblazingmusket.com. You can follow us on Twitter, Threads, TikTok, and Blue Sky at RFC Podcast. We have an Instagram at Raising Anchor, and there's that website, raisinganchorpodcast.com. Anchors up, y'all. We'll see you in Westchester.
See you in New York. Anchors up.